Okay, so as I told you the other day, it is a psychological story. It's a mind travel. ये जो genre होता है ना, उसको mind travel बोलते हैं. So in this psychological novel, the character switches to the past. Okay. Often, what happens in a story with psychological or mind trouble, what happens? The character switches from past to the present and sometimes future as well. In this story, you will find that Charlie, there is a the protagonist of the main character is Charlie. So situation here is after the World War. The situation was very tense because after the war, you must be knowing that there is a lot of crisis in terms of food. There is a lot of pressure on economy. There is a lot of crisis when it comes to employment, food, and security. Therefore, Charlie, the protagonist, tends to escape to the peaceful world of the past. And here, the peaceful world is referred to in this story as Galesburg, Illinois, of 1890. Okay, so in 1890 of Galesburg, there was no sign of war because First World War was, like we studied that day, 20 years away, and Second World War was 40 years away from 1890. Therefore, the society was very peaceful and there was no tension. That is why Charlie, the protagonist, tends to escape to the world of Galesburg so as to take a refuge from the present day stress and anxiety. Okay, so this is what is the theme of the story, the crux of the story. Now the whole story, let us go through in bullet points, okay, very briefly. And then Monday onwards, we will start a new lesson from Vista, that is the Tiger King, okay, another lesson, and then we will stop. Okay, so Sahil, the story begins with the mention of a third level at the Grand Central Station, which in reality has only two levels. Okay, here the character Charlie, he presumes in his mind that there is a third level which he has visited in the Grand Central Station in New York. Okay, Charlie informs the entire experience to his psychiatrist friend Sam. Charlie thought he experienced time travel and had reached somewhere in 1890s. His friend Sam informs that he has experienced hallucination. You know the meaning of hallucination? What is hallucination? Hallucination is something like if there is an illusion in your mind. For example, you are sitting here and somehow there is an illusion, you thought someone has come in front of you. When you looked up, there is nobody. So that is in English called hallucination. Okay, infatuation, or you can say illusion, right? Like we have optical illusion, you must have heard about. Likewise, hallucination is an illusion. Okay, there is nobody around, but somehow you think there is somebody standing in front of you. When you look up, there is no one. This is called illusion or hallucination. So his psychiatrist friend Sam thinks that this time travel on the part of Charlie is nothing but a hallucination. Hallucination मतलब ये एक illusion है उनके तरफ से, right? Next you see, according to Sam, in order to avoid the burden of modern life, Charlie experiences the third level of the Grand Central Station. Sahil, so what is the explanation of his psychiatrist friend Sam when he came to know that Charlie has gone to the third level of Grand Central Railway Station? What was his explanation? Number one, he said it was a hallucination, means it was an illusion in the mind of Charlie. And secondly, Sam says that as there is a lot of stress and anxiety in the present day world, therefore Charlie's visit to the third level in the past is a psychological refuge or a shelter to escape the pungent or the bitter reality of the present. Understood? So these are the two explanations given by his friend, psychiatrist friend Sam. Sreyash, psychiatrist friends Sam. Okay. Next, you see his grandfather. Now, Sam informs Charlie that his stamp collection is also an effort from his end to escape into the past. Because see, if you like something of the past, anything, any habit or any object of the past, like there are a lot of people who like to store the antique things you might have seen, like gramophone, okay, like old radio, very nicely said, radio, okay, old television, right, and many other stuff. So what do you think does it refer to? What do you think is the purpose behind this? Because see, we can remember something very easily with an object. If an object is in front of you and if you have any memory attached to that object, then that memory tends to immediately flash onto your mind if that object is kept in front of you. Understood? Not only the object, but any person attached to the object will also come to your mind. So that is called object memory, right? So people tend to collect the antique things in order to express their love and nostalgic feeling for the past. They have a nostalgic feeling. They tend to go back to the past. That is why they are keeping the object so that they get some pleasure out of it. So Sam says that Charlie's stamp collection is also an effort from his end to escape from the real world. Because stamp collection is of the past, there is no such stamp collection at the moment, right? Stamps were used abundantly in the past for sending and receiving letters, right? Yes. Now you see, his grandfather also collected stamps, but in olden days they had not experienced consequences of war and there was peace, harmony and security. Now there is a comparison given with the grandfather. Charlie says, Sam says his grandfather, Charlie says his grandfather also collected stamp, but in olden days there was only peace, okay? But earlier people did not collect the antique things to avoid the present day, okay, because their present was very pleasant. But nowadays people do that so that they can escape into the past to avoid the present. That is why his grandfather also collected stamp, but not to take refuge in the past from the present, but as a hobby. Charlie then explains how he chose to take the subway to his apartment instead of the usual bus after a late night shift. He did this in order to save time. Once Charlie was going to his office, home from attending office, he wanted to avoid the traffic. That is why he took the subway, and this is how he got lost in the third level. Next, you see here, he describes himself as an ordinary man of 31, dressed in a tan gabardine suit. Gabardine suit and all this Google image, as I told you, you can see the image, and a straw hat with a fancy band. Charlie comes to the part of the incident where he entered the Grand Central from the Vanderbilt Avenue and took the stairs to the first level, where one boarded trains like the 20th century. Okay, means in the Grand Central station there are two levels which are really present, like first level and second level. So first level is for the all metro places, big places, and second level is the underground. I mean, second floor is for connecting to the suburban places. Okay, like suppose from New York City to, if you want to go to a village or a on those places, small places, then the second floor station used to connect those places. Okay. Then you see, once you entered the wrong lobby and reached Roosevelt Hotel, and another time in an office building which was 3 blocks away. But this time he reaches the third level. He wondered that Grand Central was expanding at a very fast rate. Grand Central was expanding at a very fast rate because Grand Central is a place of exit of innumerable people. The unusual corridor he had entered into began angling left and slanting downward. However, he kept on walking. He got lost actually because there were a lot of corridors in the basement. So he got lost. Each time he entered underground, he used to get lost because it was very confusing. There was no one except him, and the voice of his feet echoed when he reached the third level. From the second level, further he went down in his psychological travel, and then he entered the third level. He finally heard the sound of people, and when he entered the third level, he came across some people who looked ancient, like their way of dress up, and the objects that were kept, like spittoons, brass spittoons were there, like the ticket counters were very small, unlike the present day ones, which are very big. They are very small, and the currency was also of the golden olden time. Therefore, there was a lot of difference which he could find on entering the third level. He finally, he finally heard the sound of people talking from distance. Then he took a left and walked down the stairs again, only to reach the third level of the Grand Central. He noticed the room was smaller. So, what are the differences he could find on reaching the third level? You see, he could see that room was smaller. The room was smaller. ये सब कोई एग्जाम में आता है actually. This question might come. Okay, like what was Charlie's observation on entering the third level? So the room was smaller. There were fewer ticket counters and train gates, and the information booth in the center was wood and old looking, was made of wood. The man in the booth was also different, and the station was dim lit, for there were open flame gas lights. As the clerk calculated the fare, Charlie just had enough for one-sided journey, not for the two sides. So where did Charlie want to go by collecting the ticket, railway fare, railway ticket? बताओ कहाँ जाना चाहते थे चार्ली? नहीं, मतलब थर्ड लेवल में पहुंच के टिकट काउंटर से टिकट लेके कहाँ जाना चाहते थे? With his wife Louisa, he wanted to go to Galesburg. Galesburg जाना चाहते थे वो. लेकिन his money was of the modern day. Therefore, the ticket counter did not give him any ticket because he was not having the legal tender. He was having the modern day money. He needed the old money to get ticket for 2 tickets to and fro for Galesburg for with his wife. That is why he could not buy. You see, as the clerk calculated the fare, Charlie just had enough for one-sided journey. Just as he took out money, the clerk informed that this is not acceptable legal tender because he was having the modern day money. He ran out because he did not want to go to jail because the ticket counter became very angry when he saw that the notes that Charlie showed him were not of legal tender. Okay, then. But unfortunately, he could never find the corridor leading to the third level again, despite hard efforts. And then he lost the third level suddenly the next day. His wife Louisa was pretty worried when she got to know about it all, and advised him not to look for third level any further. Okay, because she also did not believe that it can be real. So she told him not to look for any third level because in that case he might get lost somewhere. One night Charlie came across. Now देखो last part Sahil, last part of the story. One night Charlie came across a first day cover. What is a first day cover? I explained to you. It is an envelope with a stamp on it that stamp collectors mail to themselves on the first day of the launch of the stamp. The envelopes are blank inside and are not meant to be opened. While searching for stamps, Charlie discovers a letter which bears a postmark on a faded 6-cent stamp with a picture of President Garfield. Because on the stamp, pictures of famous people are there. Like you might have seen in our stamp also, like Mahatma Gandhi, okay, Jawaharlal Nehru and all this. Their pictures are also there on the stamps, okay. While the envelope was sent on July 1894 to Charlie's grandfather. Okay, he could find a first day cover, and the date is, you see, July 1894, and it was to Charlie's grandfather. Okay, but actually, who has sent this letter? The letter reads that Sam had reached the third level. Actually, it was Sam who has sent this letter to Charlie to give the feel that he himself, like Charlie, had reached psychologically, okay, in his mind's eye, the third level, like Charlie did. So he said, Sam had reached the third level and had been there for 2 weeks. He asked Charlie and Louisa to never stop searching for the third level and come back. So Sam then informed his friend Charlie that never look for the third level again, because he means to say that this is what not doesn't exist. Recapitulation एक बार पढ़ लेते हैं जल्दी. Sahil, recapitulation, okay. The story revolves around a 31-year-old Charlie who experienced something weird. One day after work, from coming from his office, he reached the third level of the Grand Central Station, which does not actually exist. He shares his experience with his psychiatrist friend Sam, who thought he experienced time travel and had reached somewhere in the 1890s. He went looking for the third level but failed to find it. Find it. Okay? It worried his wife. Charlie does resorts to his stamp collection in order to distract himself, when suddenly one day he finds a letter from his friend Sam, who had gone missing recently. He encourages Charlie and Louison to never stop looking for it. Okay? To never stop looking for it means he should look for third level. Sorry. Sam said he should look for third level because it gives you pleasure. So to get pleasure and happiness out of the past, his friend advised him to never stop looking for it. Conclusion. This story brings us to the conclusion that people find it difficult to adjust with unpleasant things of everyday life. Right? Like any common man, Charlie too appreciates the pleasures of everyday life. He wants to go back to past because 1894 was much more peaceful, secure and quiet than the contemporary world. And then the insecurities and anxiety that come with war, terror and stress of modern day had occupied the common man like Charlie, so much so that he wants a temporary relief from the pungent realities of life. Okay? So, that's all about the third level, right? So let's wind up here, dear students, and we shall begin with a new lesson the next day, that is the Tiger Queen. So okay, thank you so much.